Yeah, I'm so accustomed to having music on, I forgot to speak for a second.
I almost hit leave meeting when that thing came up. Um, wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I almost said that. That would have been funny. Just whoop.
Yeah, and the recording is the two
Yeah.
of us, and then you disappear, and then it's
Whoop.
just me.
So this is week 10, I
Oh,
think. I don't
yeah,
know.
it is.
Hi guys.
We
You
have
you
yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
quiz this week that's gonna go live. Maybe, I don't know. Jason's the one who set it up. I think it goes live at 12.
It goes live at it goes live at noon. Uh, and I'm pretty sure, although let me take a quick look to be sure that it is assigned to only half, like each each one is only assigned to half of the class. I feel fairly certain of that, but I want to make sure. Something I
Well,
should have done before this, huh?
just awkward. Well, he's saying that thanks for the heads up that it wasn't working right last week, that the quiz 5 whatever did not have a file that was attached, because it was attached. Just I don't know what that was, but I have angered the Googles, and
Yo,
my Google experiences lately have been really interesting. So thanks for the quick heads up on that. And I was able to get that out to y'all real easy. I don't know why it sent with no file. It was showing a file, so I just removed it and attached it. So thanks for the heads up.
and speaking of mistakes, I had not scheduled these, not while they were scheduled, I had not assigned them to only half the class. So I'm doing that right now. All of you at home
Wow.
are getting a peek behind the curtain.
Did you not say that I was doing too much when I was hitting you up about quiz 5 and quiz 6 and the exam? And you're like, God, you're really on it. And then I was
Yeah.
like, you had one task, Jason, just one
Oh,
task.
oh, okay.
For 1 week where you're responsible for the content, you had one task.
Oh, I
I made sure the quizzes were there.
yeah, it's it's it's
I'm just
all
gonna
good.
sit here on my high horse, this dead unicorn skeleton, and just, you know.
Because I had them scheduled. I forgot to click off of all students and make it just half the class. So I'm doing that as we speak. Uh,
While he's doing that, hey, you have a quiz that should go live for you in like 43 minutes.
yeah,
And that is the only thing you're responsible for this week. Try and go ahead and just let us know which one of the 2 dates of the exam 2 study sessions work best for you. It doesn't really matter. As far as like, it's not a grade. If you pick one and it doesn't work for your schedule, that's okay. I think the main thing is our schedules this semester are much different than they had been in the previous semesters,
yeah.
where we were able to offer a little bit more leeway into trying to accommodate these study sessions for student schedules. Unfortunately, I'm teaching an overload and I have too many damn students. And then I also, like, you know, a mom, and I don't live here, and Jason doesn't live here. So like all of these perfect alignments of planets have stacked up to really make it problematic. So I'm going to do a study session on Monday. I will answer any questions that you guys have relating to Roman literature, Roman philosophy, Roman historical information that I presented to you to help you do as well as possible on the exam. And Jason's going to do his on Tuesday. I think his is from 11 to 12 on Tuesday, and mine is Monday afternoon.
And in the past, it used to like to offer at least one nighttime option, but now with well, two things with my wife now working a job where she travels, and my child's like busy social life. My evenings are like completely booked these days. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I'll go
just
over the art of the Romans as well as the history of late antiquity we talked about, as well as the early Christian art of late antiquity that we talked about. For anybody who has questions about that.
you want to make sure that when if you are attending the study session that you come with questions. Like, so for example, if you didn't understand what Stoicism was, because that's kind of like a big deal that kind of gets revisited during the Roman era. Remember, we had that before with the Greeks, but like as Rome does, it takes things, it's the great plagiarism. It takes things and like revisits it and reamps it for their premise and for who they are as a culture. Like if you didn't quite understand how Rome changed some of the stuff with philosophy, mainly Stoicism, then by all means come with those questions. If you didn't really understand at all what Aeneid was doing with, or what Ovid was doing with the Aeneid, yeah, you definitely want to let me know. I don't know why I said Ovid, that seems weird, but we're just gonna I
Leave
said
it in
it,
there so they can be confused.
yeah, and then it just came out weird because nope, that's not who I meant. But you know, I know who Seneca is, so there's that. I kind of sort of know my shit. It's fine. But come with questions because otherwise there's not really a point to the study session. And
Yeah.
before you even ask, we already can tell you the setup is going to be exactly the same
That's
as the
exactly what
last
I was gonna
exam,
say.
except the only difference is, oh, the only difference, I have a visitor in my office and they just dropped their phone. And it was just, you know,
But I would say the one difference is going to be that this time when we tell you there will be no new choice questions, there should be no new multiple choice questions on this one.
yeah. I think what it was last time was it was like it's just no new information that you haven't already gotten. And that was me not communicating that. Although I did say it in my lecture, like, hey, this will be, don't be surprised if this shows up for the
Yeah.
first time on the exam. So pay attention. Also, because we have multiple versions of quizzes, please read the quiz question or the multiple choice questions carefully on the exam, because I may use the exact same question, but I've changed like one thing to where it's not the same question. So like version A may have it to where the question looks the same, but you're looking for who the philosopher was. Whereas version B has it where it's like the work by that. Just
I
saying.
have questions like that as well. And
Where I changed the order of the answers. I don't think I did that. You're gonna get the quiz answer keys anyway. That's Jason, like he's handling that. I'm putting that on record. Just
okay, yeah, I'm on it.
I'm not throwing you under the bus, but I am just pretty much saying like I did my part for this. If it doesn't come out, then I don't know what to do. I'll just
Yeah, no, I'm on it. But on that subject, that means your quiz over the weekend, if it would be best if you get it in on time, but if there is going to be something that keeps you from doing that, you really should reach out to us because we don't have a lot of wiggle room, because we do need to get those answer keys out to people so they can be ready for the exam that's coming up. But yeah, exact same structure. There'll be the 25 multiple choice questions coming from the quizzes 4, 5, and 6, and 2 essay prompts from each of us, from which you'll choose one. Same as last time. So very much rinse and repeat.
yay. And quiz 6 is the one that goes live today, and it's going to focus on material that you only received from Cole this week. So yeah.
And as I get the feeling that there aren't a huge number of, because we were talking about views on lecture videos and stuff earlier, and the lecture views are okay. They can be better. I get the feeling there's a good, at least like third, if not half of you that aren't watching the videos at all. But when it comes to these, the weekly wrap-ups, I mean, dude, it'll be in the single digits. And so since I get the feeling there's not a lot of you who are watching these, I'll go ahead and tell you that I've got a lot of questions on these quizzes that come from things that I said in lecture, but are not necessarily on the bullet pointed lists in the actual slides. So if you haven't watched those, if you haven't watched those, you should really check them out.
If I could just real quick, before last week, Cole and I were talking about how the quiz scores for, I think quiz 4 were kind of low.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, y'all kicked ass on quiz 5. I
Yeah.
wonder whose quiz that was. So I'm just saying, like, I'm super excited that y'all pulled through. Probably, I'm just gonna say, because I gave you all of the answers in my material because I'm lazy AF, but it could also be that you're getting it from like Study Blue or Quizlet or whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Grades are
That,
ridiculous. They don't matter.
yeah, that's like the highest class average that we've had of any of the quizzes was on quiz 5.
Super excited. Y'all did amazing. So now comes the fun part. Like, are you gonna do it with the Sneaky McSneakerson's quiz too, where he's sitting here putting stuff in the quiz lecture material that was on the quiz?
Yeah.
Or I'm not gonna brag. I'm bragging on y'all. Good job. Or just way to make it work. So yeah. Anyway, quiz 6 is this week. Try and make sure that you at least know that there's gonna be study sessions Halloween day, which is Monday, from 1 to 2 p.m. and then All Saints Day, November 1st,
At
from
I think I said 11.
11 to 12, which is a
Yeah.
Tuesday. And then the exam will go live for you Wednesday at noon, and it'll stay open for you until 10:59 on Sunday, November, is it 7th? I'm sorry,
No, I think that
6th.
6th. Yes.
My apologies.
'Cause
That's all
I was gonna say, I know I've got something in a class that's due on the 7th. So I was like, no, it can't be that. All right.
And you don't have any new material either next week. You're just supposed to study for the exam. So, and then I think you're doing the beginnings of the Renaissance. Yes.
No.
No, we do medieval.
Yeah, we're gonna go medieval on your asses.
Yay! One of my favorite times.
Uh,
It's a good time. All that death and destruction and fires, like plague. It's
and
all
the-
good times.
the beautiful the beautiful and complexly woven superstitions of the Middle Ages are fun. Yeah, it's a fun time.
Can I tell you a fun fact that I learned?
What's that?
So this may be on a quiz or something. So do you want to know why the Black Plague happened the way it did? It all, now I'm not saying causation. I am
Okay.
saying very interesting correlation. So
Okay.
it was around the time that they had witch burnings. Because why? What did witches have, as me who are aware, these green wives, these herb witches, they
Yeah.
knew that they had to protect their grains and stuff, so they had cats.
Yep.
So why is it you have the plague? You had at the areas witches were killed, they killed their familiars, the cats, and you had a huge influx of vermin and rodents who
Yeah.
spread plague. So you can thank the Black Plague for
witch hunt.
reinforcing misogyny.
Yeah.
Because most of the people who were killed for like suspected of witchcraft were actually women who were having their own agency.
Mhm.
So women who were married but were widowed and like just never did anything else. So ironically enough, it was your midwives, the ones who were tasked with taking care of not just only women during childbirth, but they were your primary physicians. They were the people who handled illness after battle. So
Yeah.
these were women who were in a sphere that men were excluded from. So the way that men inserted themselves, no pun intended, is they accused those women who were denying men access of being witches and condemned them and their cats. And then as a result of that, the cats were also killed, particularly if they were like black cats or whatever, but whatever. And then you had plague.
Yeah.
Every time there was a huge instance of the resurgence of like bubonic plague, there had just been some
big
sort of
witch scare.
witch scenario happening throughout much of Europe.
That's it. Yeah, that is a very interesting correlation. I don't know that I have read that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I just raised my cup, but you know, you're welcome.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because cats are already problematic historically as an animal anyway, particularly when it deals with like Christianity. insofar as a lot of the pagan religions that we've covered thus far had some sort of like god or goddess, a deity who was connected with cats. So
Yeah.
Christianity, as it often like assimilated these deities from other religions, because Rome did that to help make the newly joined flock feel welcome within the religion. But they put their foot down on cats. They like cats are not, I don't want to say cats aren't Christian, but it's because between the two, dogs are like the perfect role model for Christians, right? They're
Yeah.
blindly loyal. They're
That's
like
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that I imagine there's got to be a portion of it that's just like, there's that one
these
animal
cats.
that we can't control. They must be evil.
And frankly, most of the time in a lot of the cultures that we have looked at as far as their theism is concerned, cats were associated with women. So you know, that patriarchy with like Christianity in the beginning really as a thing for women. So of course we're going to try and like remove any sort of deity or goddess that's connected with femininity and women in general. That's why dogs are considered man's best friend,
Yeah.
you know, because it's to help reinforce the patriarchal values that are important for men. But, you know, women are like cats, you know, crazy cat lady. Oh, okay. Because you're outside of society, you're a deviant, you're not controllable, you
Yeah.
don't like to be touched without your permission. So add that with women who have green
Imagine that.
Yep. Who are your herb witches, your kitchen witches, your midwives, who essentially maintained cultural identity, sometimes connected with pagan beliefs, but not always. And yeah, you had the perfect storm for why the bubonic plague seemed to spread the way it did. Usually, I think in the analysis that I read, it said within a month, on average. Sometimes sooner, but not anything later. So after there had been a mass culling of cats and
and it really always seemed to hit Europe really hard, more so than other areas
didn't
of the
happen
world.
in the East.
Yeah.
Because they recognize the value of cats.
And they didn't have a religious organization really stamping down any sort of scientific exploration. You know?
No, they didn't have a religion that was purposefully stamping down women.
Yeah. Yes.
Women who were maintaining their agency and women who were working in spheres that men weren't allowed. So creation of life / the ushering in of life, men wanted to be there, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't, because who knows how that works. So men had to, no pun intended, insert themselves in that way. And that also led to the death of lots of women post that, because you had your early surgeons who would literally be touching dead bodies and then go birth women's children and not clean their damn hands. So a lot of childbed fever is because the midwifery lore
that was a thing all the way up until the 1800s. It was
Jason, it was going on through the Civil War too.
Yes, I'm saying the 1800s.
Yeah.
Like that was
1865, early 1900s.
Where I don't even remember the dude's name. There was the one guy who researched that, was like, you know what? The midwives are washing their hands, and they don't have nearly the same death rate as you guys over here who are not washing your hands after dealing with dead bodies. And he put in a hand washing regimen in that particular hospital, and all of the surgeons, they did it begrudgingly, but they all complained. The death rate went way down, but they still kept complaining until finally he was shuffled off and was considered a joke and a madman, and they all went back to not washing their hands.
Yeah.
And the hospital's death rate or infant mortality rate went back, skyrocketed again.
It's a fun time, man. But it was a really interesting thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, if you ever wanted to know why, because we're in the spooky season where witches have their cats out. Also, we could talk about the anti-Semitism associated with the way the witches are represented anyway.
Yeah.
Why they're writing posts. Like, we could literally talk about this because it's all like connected to like patriarchal, I love it, patriarchal like problems as well as anti-Semitism. But you can thank patriarchy, particularly religion, that is male centric in the Western sphere for why we had the bubonic plague, according to this scholarship that I read, because they killed the cats. And it wasn't just the people who were the cats who existed with the green witches. It was pretty much they would eradicate all cats because no one wanted to be suspected in any way, shape, or form as being related to witchery.
Because if a cat's walking around of its own agency,
Yep.
there must be someone out there pulling the strings and making.
Well, no,
that
it was the same thing on farms. So if there was, all it took was for one, like, and what this guy's analysis, what this person's analysis was they found that if there had been a witch killing, then you had what's called the cat gap, where cats got a cold, right? Kind of like what we do when we were having like an avian flu. So they culled all the cats, and then you had a huge influx of infected vermin.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that they killed just the cats associated with the witches. It was the entire community's like, we don't want to go down this ship. Like, I don't want anyone thinking that I'm a witch, or that I'm harboring witches, or that my daughters are witches, or whatever. Like, kill the cats.
Yeah.
And then, there you go. Also, another fun fact that I learned along the same lines. Do you know that rabies will kill you in like 14 days?
Yeah.
So it
Crazy.
starts showing symptoms like after the bite. You have 10 days to get a vaccine or injections. And after 10 days, like, you have at best 21 days, but the symptoms start showing in 10 days, and it is 100% lethal. And there was a dude who died in 2021 here in the United States from rabies.
Yeah. Oh, because it
was a bat. But it wasn't even like, the protocol is if you wake up with a bat in your house. Again, I'm continuing on with the spooky theme. Spooky. I meant to say spooky. If you wake up and there's a bat in your room, you're supposed to, for the protocol, go start rabies preventatives. And it's a lot. Because if you don't, there's a good chance that you'll get it.
Because the virus is just so incredibly well designed that it goes for what, I forget what part of the brain it goes to.
Well, there's two different types of rabies.
Yeah, but like the virus I'm thinking of, it like, I can't remember, it's a certain section of your brain that it goes there first and then literally switches off. They'll be like, hey, if you see anything that looks like me, leave it alone.
Yep.
you just let that do its thing. And then it starts like working its way into like our lymphatic system and into our saliva glands and all that. And then once it's all in there, then it's like, all right, now it switches on the need to bite people. Like, you just suddenly have this desire to bite people because it's got all that virus just sitting in your saliva ready to inject.
But that's not true. That's not true. It's two different types.
Yeah,
some people will get infected with it's called the, damn it, I was gonna say whatever. There's one where it's paralysis.
Yeah.
And there's one that's like frantic, I think. So not everyone gets infected with the same type of rabies.
Yeah.
So depending on what happens, you may come across something like an animal. Ironically enough, it's all predatory animals too. Prey animals do not spread. Birds can get it from eating rabid meat, but they develop antibodies and they don't get it. So the only ones who ever get it are predatory animals. Yeah. Fun fact. That's why your raccoons, because they have a tendency to be predatory. It's just your predatory mammals. Yeah. Fun fact. But anywho, you get the ones where paralysis, so they get sick, and instead of them going into like the frantic mode, the aggressive mode, the one that needs to bite, they just lay around.
Yeah.
And slowly succumb. And like, that's only 20% of cases. But I was like, I would like to get rabies like that. I would like to just do like the lazy day.
Lie there and do nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And just slowly like go into a coma because they also don't get the hydrophobia.
Yeah, because
only the ones who are like Cujo, who are in the active, and that's only like one stage. Then they eventually go into a different stage. Like, it's very short, the need to bite and spread.
Yeah. because I was listening. It was an episode of Radio Lab that was all about diseases and other things that make us act completely and utterly against our will, as sort of a spooky season kind of
Yep.
thing. So it was like also there's some.
Is it the fungus that attacks the ants that makes? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and
That
then
one's really neat.
there's one that like literally, it's generally in this one is generally in prey animals that affects the, like say a mouse, and convinces that mouse to just be completely and utterly unafraid, so that it just runs right out in the open where prey animals can find it, so that it will be eaten and then infect the prey animal. You know,
So it's like the rage virus from Resident Evil.
only it's more, I guess, more the chill virus, because the mouse just like walks out and it's like, oh well, there's a hawk. Hello, hawk. And the hawk just swoops down, takes it, and the mouse is like, yeah, I've served my purpose. This is fine.
We have very weird interests. Sorry guys for who
Yeah.
I am, but I also learned that tetanus, you can survive that. Because it was actually an argument that I was having with someone, and I was like, I think tetanus is worse, because that seems like that would be more excruciatingly painful. So, and it is like tetanus will make you break your own damn bones. And like all I keep thinking is like, why would that? But it's not lethal. So at the end of the day, because it's a bacteria, you could technically fight tetanus, yes, but you're going to be completely liquefied because the act of you doing that, like you break your jaw because of it being locked and the pressure in which you're having the muscle spasms. You break your femurs, you can break your damn pelvis. So at the end of the day, it'll be like a Pyrrhic win. It's like, well, I beat tetanus, but I am in a full body cast. And I have punctured some organs, and I'm probably dying.
And a treatment that is still kind of in the trial stages, but it's getting some success for rabies, is to put people into a medically induced coma.
Yeah.
Because what they're starting to discover is that the body can eventually build some antibodies to take out the virus that causes rabies, but it needs more than that 14 days. Yep. So you put a person in a coma and try to keep their fever down, and then eventually their body's doing their natural thing, build up the antibodies, and then they're able to fight it off.
Only 2 people have survived that, though. Only 2.
No, at least from what I read, there's been a few more.
No, there's only 2 that have done it successful in the time frame. You have to catch them just right. So, like, they've got it where they went. Yeah. So it's 21 days. Like they push it. So only 2. It's 100% lethal. Ironically enough, though, there's people in Peru who have antibodies and they have no idea how they have them. Much like what we see with birds. Mm-hmm. So you cannot, like, it's not a naturally occurring thing, and you can actually get reinfected with it.
Yeah.
So the ones who were on life support, they also got the immunoglobulin, which is the experimental thing too. So at first it was put them in a medically induced coma, because there's 2 different protocols to deal with rabies. The medically induced coma has only produced 2 people who survived just on the medical induced coma.
Yeah.
The other ones received
the trial has only had about 30 people so far.
Yeah, they received the immunoglobulin, which is technically blood from people who have antibodies. So it was more than just the one. It's really neat. Like, it's 100%, it kills you. Like, no joke, it's 100% lethal. Like, sometimes you're like tetanus is not 100% lethal. Yeah. The infection. And I'm like, but I feel like tetanus is worse. Like, if I'm doing something to my body where I break my femurs and my pelvis, I feel like that's worse. That's like a car, like you got hit by a train. You know what I mean? Because to break your femur,
and at least significant. With rabies, you're kind of frantic and out of your mind.
Yeah.
So who knows if you're feeling any of that? But you're going to be feeling those femurs break.
I mean, and you can't do anything because your jaw's locked.
Yeah. Ugh.
So you know, like the messed up part is it starts in the jaw. Lockjaw is the first place. And then you start having the contractions everywhere else. So it's like a seizure, but it never stops and it gets progressively worse. So for example, if none of you can do 100% of what your body is physically capable of doing, just so you know. The only time that you ever see the human body do 100% of what it's physically capable of doing is when it is doing a traumatic response. And that is like where you see this like 5 foot tall woman pick up a car by herself to get her baby out.
Yep.
Your body physically prevents you from doing 100%
Yeah.
because you will break yourself if you do that. The only reason that you're able to do it and it's in short bursts of time is because your body is like, oh shit, all right.
Yeah, like in that particular case, your body is like, if this person dies, then I don't continue my genetic line. Save that.
Well, and it happens like, so you see someone get hit by like, so fall into a subway, you know, pit where the rail is, and then all of a sudden these people are like exponentially fast and they're able to get in and get out. Your body is like, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of cortisol and a shit ton of adrenaline. And then your body is like Popeye eating spinach or whatever, like, yes, I have the power. And you are able to do that 100%, but it comes at a cost because nothing else is working in your body.
Yep.
Nothing. All of your non-vital organs, pretty much your guts, they stop. Your bladder stops. All unnecessary life things stop. The only thing that's responding are muscles and respiration and barely brain.
Yeah.
Like lizard brain. That's it. You're not able to do much. That is your body at 100%.
I had one moment with my daughter when she was still a baby, you know, small enough to be held like this. And I was stepping into the bathroom to get something. And so I had her in this arm, let go of her with the other to reach to get whatever it was. And she bucked just enough to pop out of my hand. And it was one of those things where I, in slow motion, saw my child launching and her head headed toward the tank of the toilet. And I don't even remember the next like second, because next thing I know, I'm there and I have her. I've caught her like centimeters before her head like smashed into that tank on the back of the toilet. Caught her, stepped away, and I had to put that child in her bassinet and lie down because everything in my body hurt. And I mean, it was I'd only moved maybe 2 or 3 feet, but I had done it in a speed that not even I could comprehend because I don't even remember it. I just remember seeing the child launch and then I had her.
It's a thing, man. Yeah, but that's the, like, so the next time your coach tells you like, I want you to give 100%, just remember it is physically impossible for you to give 100%. Okay, it is.
And tell your coach that.
Yeah, you can make your brain work, but it's not even going to do 100%. Like, you cannot do 100% for a prolonged period of time outside of some sort of fight or flight scenario, because your body will literally break itself, like with the tetanus. The most common injuries are you going to rip muscle from bone. Like that's first. If you were to do 100%, you would be ripping muscle, and not just small muscle. I mean, like your thighs, your hamstrings, you would rip them from bone. And then you would break bone.
When I'm editing this video later, I may put like some creepy music underneath this like second half of this thing.
The human body's amazing. I am just so amazed by it. But anyway, those were the fun facts that I've learned since I've had a chance to tell you. I've actually learned a lot of really, really, really interesting things. But by far, my favorite one right now is I lost a bet. Tetanus is not as lethal as rabies. And so my husband was right. Y'all don't know him, but I feel the need to just acknowledge. But damn, what a way to go. Yeah. It's fast. Tetanus can take 3 months before you start demonstrating symptoms, whereas rabies, you have 10 days. after like day 14, so you have 10 days to have 100% success rate with receiving the preventative prophylactic care.
Yeah.
From day 10 to day 14, it's still not good, but you have a better shot than if you wait past day 14, because by pretty much day 14,
You're dead.
it's
Yeah.
100% lethal now.
Yeah.
So I want to say it goes from 100% to like 65%, which is still better.
Yeah.
But by that point, you have to have the immunoglobulin. Like that's going to be part of your treatment. Most people don't have to; they just have to get the vaccine, the shots. And the immunoglobulin, which is a transfusion of antibodies directly from human sources, is from days 10 to 14. And if you get infected again, you won't ever have to do the immunoglobulin again. It doesn't matter. So then you technically have until 14 days to start treatment. Still have to have treatment though.
Yeah.
So it's not like you develop a permanent immunity. Rabies is like, I see your T cells
Yeah.
and
But
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm just
They're
going to get into
mine.
your brain, and I'm going to tell
Yeah.
your brain, just ignore that.
All your
people-
bases are mine.
Yeah.
It's gonna look around, it's like, hello, it's me. I've been here before and it's mine. Yeah, fun fact. I think you have a 65% chance of surviving tetanus. But I didn't say your quality of life would be good.
Yeah, no. Even those who have done the medically induced coma still have a long recovery period after they've gotten rid of the virus, after their body's been able to fight off the virus, because just everything's been jacked up in there.
Because it's encephalitis.
Yeah.
It's essentially like, it's like meningitis. You get like hardcore inflammation in the brain. And if any of you ever watched Osmosis Jones, you know you can't let your brain get too hot. Hot, baby.
Getting a little hot in here.
God, I love that movie. I didn't realize how gross it was though until I introduced my son to it. And I was like, so ignoring all of the other problems with that film, like when he drops that hard-boiled egg,
Yep.
like Bill Murray is like, I'm grossed out just watching it. Like the whole thing, like it's disgusting. And the whole time I'm just sitting here like watching my kid drop shit on the floor, because you know he's like 2, and I'm like, ugh, let's pick that up. And I'm not like that. I'm not a germaphobe. Well, this is pre-COVID, but
yeah,
I'm not a germaphobe. But like even after that movie, it's like I question my choices. You know. Anywho, let's end this on a high note, guys. Don't be surprised if I randomly put the cat question in like quiz 7 or something, because that feels like that's appropriate when we're talking about the bubonic plague. So
yeah.
it's called the cat gap is what it's called.
So yeah, in a nutshell, you got quiz 6 that'll be at the time of this recording releasing in like 8 minutes. It is appropriately scheduled and assigned to only the half of the class that should see each version. Then next week, no new materials from us. If you're able, come to one of the study sessions. If you're not able, we'll get those recordings posted on Google Classroom so that you can see what questions were asked and what we said. And then, yeah, next week you have exam number 2. And then, yeah, and then we dive into the Middle Ages, which is a time that both of your professors happen to like. All right, anything else?
No. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Samhain. Or Samhain, depending on where you come from. I do the Scots, Samhain, but Samhain. For those of you who participate in the Day of the Dead, like that's coming up. Can I just I cannot do Spanish. All right. I accept that about myself. I get it. So I'm just gonna say the Day of the Dead. So for those of you who culturally celebrate the Day of the Dead, I hope you enjoy your time. I don't even know if that's the right way to wish you greetings for that day. For those of you who do Halloween, trick or treat. Although I have candy in my office too, by the way, if you guys need to pick me up. and you happen to come by, just there's no chocolate because my students have allergies to peanuts. So I have to be careful with chocolate. But anywho, have a good time and happy All Saints Day if you're into that.
If anybody's going to the Boo Bash tonight and you happen to see me, understand, and I've had this happen with a few students, I may not know what you look like. Please come introduce yourself. I would love to meet any of you that I've not had the chance to meet. I've had a few students come up to me lately and just start talking, and I've had to be like, I'm sorry, please tell me who you are. Because I've only ever seen a little circle of about 10 pixels tall of you on Google Classroom, and many of you, that is.
I don't have that problem because I printed out a roster that has your pictures on it.
Well, I mean, sure, but
so I might know you're in my class, but I may not know who the heck you are. But I'll be like, hey, you can always tell if I don't know who you are, because I'll be like, hey, and I'll sit there and talk to you like I know who you are, and then I'll introduce you to whomever it is that's standing next to me. I'll be like, oh yeah, by the way, this is my husband. And then I let him introduce himself. So then you introduce yourself, and then we're all square. So if you ever have a moment where I'm just sitting here talking to you and I'm like, yeah. And then I introduce you to whoever is in my immediate party right next to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is so-and-so. That is my way of trying to not awkwardly acknowledge that I have no idea who you are.
Yeah, I've done that too.
And that's just a good tip. Like, I'm just putting that out there. You said if you want it, like if you in an adulting situation are forced to acknowledge that you don't know who someone is, that like kills their soul a little bit. You know, so it's better to try a different tactic. Although I also am in the camp, in case you haven't met me, where I'll just be like, yeah, I have no idea who you are.
Yeah. One of my tricks is usually to be like, turn to my wife and say, hey, do you want to introduce yourself, so that there's not the expectation that I should be introducing them to each other. And so I'll say to like Megan, I'm like, hey, you want to introduce yourself? And so she'll be like, yeah, hi, I'm Megan. And then that person will say, hi, I'm so-and-so. And I'm like, got it.
Do you realize that we have two different approaches, but we're doing the same thing? But the irony is, like, I don't put my spouse on the spot, because what would happen? Megan is going to introduce herself. I get it, because she's extroverted.
Yeah.
But like, imagine, if you will, if she had done that to you, and then all the burden, because what are you going to say? Like, no?
Yeah. Well,
you realize that it's all, you're putting it 100% on her.
Yeah, but
you're like, do you want to introduce yourself? What if she calls your boss and is like, no?
She has done that to me plenty of times. Don't worry. we are, my wife and I are pretty attuned when it comes to that kind of things. We each of us gets the cues. Like we are pretty good at giving each other the look, like the look that says, help me, I don't know who this is.
No, you know what, if I'm ever standing anywhere near you and you're trying to do that shit to me, I'm gonna go on to call your bluff and be like, no, that's not how decorum works. You're supposed to introduce me.
Yeah, but then, because I've had that backfire, because I've been like, hi, this is my wife, Megan, and she would reach to like say hi, and then that person would be waiting for me to introduce them to my wife.
That's not how it works. See,
had it happen.
I am sorry, but like, this is kind of like when people don't know how a four-way stop works. Like, so if I'm engaging a conversation with you, for example, and I'm carrying on a conversation and there's a person to my left, it's my obligation to introduce the person who I'm with and just say like, this is so, and if you ever watch like a Jane Austen like film adaptation, this is Kevin.
Yeah,
he is my spouse. And then, you know, I'm technically supposed to be like, and this is so-and-so, and they're whatever. But the modern equivalent is like, this is my spouse, Kevin. And then I let him, you know, like make the introduction, because some people don't want to have that fun little blurb. But it does grind my gears a little bit where people like completely ignore decorum. I'm just laughing because you're like, would you like to introduce yourself? And if I were with you, I'd be like, not particularly.
Yeah. But in this case, my wife knows what that's the code for.
My husband will sit there. He just looks at me. Yeah, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is my husband, Kevin, by the way. And then he's just like, hey, hi, I'm her husband.
Because
Oh man, like, how do you know her? Like,
because I will oftentimes forget to do introductions. And so yeah, my wife is usually the one who will be like, by the way, I am his wife, Megan. Nice to meet you.
yeah, I don't do that. Like, I really find it weird. Like, so I don't get bothered when people to introduce me to other people because quite frankly, I probably don't want to be introduced anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people engage in conversation with me though, like they acknowledge my presence, you and I have two different experiences I want to point out too, because as a man, people have a tendency to always acknowledge your presence, whereas your wife and I, we tend to just kind of like be ignored. We have to like insert ourselves, but then it becomes problematic because are we supposed to? Depending on where you're at, women should be seen and not heard, kind of thing. So whenever I'm in the area and my spouse is talking to somebody and they've made it very clear that I don't exist, then you know what I do when they do try to introduce themselves? I turn and leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And then my husband will just be like, that was my wife, by the way.
the one exception that I run into is when it is my daughter and just me.
Yep.
I have run into people, adults, mind you, with my daughter who will have an entire conversation with my child and never acknowledge my presence.
Yeah. You know, and I have to say it, like my kid, like whenever he and I are out doing stuff and like someone wants to engage in conversation with him, because we taught him that he doesn't have to talk to people if he doesn't want to, and he doesn't have to hug people. My kid has no shame, and he'll be like, same thing when someone calls. He'll be like, I don't really want to talk right now. Have a great day. And then I'm just like, well, enjoy your day and we'll see you later. Like,
I mean, we've certainly taught that to Augie as well, but she's Augie. She wants to talk
yeah,
to you.
your child and my child are two completely different people. But the irony is they're both hitting same developmental marks. But my kid, like, he is an extroverted introvert like his mom.
Yeah.
Just and but he also has no filter like at all, which is great because it's fun. So he will call people out who are being rude and he has no shame about it. So like if we go somewhere and like some boomer is like, being like mean, and just being like disrespectful or whatever to the cashier, like so at Kroger, we just had a couple of things and I politely said, do you want to go in front of us? Because this is a little bit less than us. And they're like, yeah, okay. And they walk up and they don't say anything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then my son just goes, you're welcome. And I'm just like, and then of course that old person is like, how dare you? So fine. But then the person will get like kind of irritated or irate with the cashier because maybe the cashier is having a bag by herself or themselves, or and the person's gonna wait. It's inconvenience. So they kind of like start grumbling or whatever. And my son, no joke, it was an older man. Okay. And I need you to know he was older, as in like older. And he was being kind of, noticeably displeased.
Yeah.
To a point where it's kind of like, wow, you're just an asshole. So then my kid literally just said, wow, you're an asshole. And I'm like, hey, Killian. So do you remember when we were at home and we talked about like we want to treat people the way that they like we should treat people the way we want to be treated? He said, yeah. And I was like, would you like it if that guy called you an asshole? And of course I'm saying it like to where that person can hear me. He's like, well, if I'm being an asshole, how am I going to learn? And I was like, that's fair. But at the same time, like there's a time and a place to call people out. And I just want to point out, like, number one, that's a home word.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be like using that, because some people get offended by it. Remember, mommy and daddy don't care. But some people get kind of up in a tizzy about it. And number two, like, you shouldn't be calling this person out like that. We should work on your tact. And the cashier was laughing, and that man, it ruined his whole effing day. And then whenever we check out, the lady was like, thank you so much for that. I do want a sucker. And he was like, why am I getting a sucker for being nice? And I'm like, there's so much to talk about there. You weren't necessarily nice, but you
Uh,
tried.
man, like, granted, I'm sure I'm a very different person than the individual you're talking about. But if I were told by a little 6-year-old child that I was being an asshole, I think my reaction would be, you know what? Thank you.
Like
I
everyone stopped. It was almost like the record scratch moment. Like everything just stopped. Like, wow, you're being an asshole. And it's this tiny little angelic voice, you know? And I just immediately was like,
what meanwhile, my kid will talk to anyone and just continue to talk to them to the point where you could tell the person wants to extract themselves from the conversation but can't figure out how. And I will find myself often telling people like, look, she's going to keep talking to you. She'll respect it if you tell her that you're done, like you need to do something else. She'll respect that. But as long as you're not telling her something, she's going to keep talking.
I'm really tired of the chatterbox, which is ironic because we just keep talking.
You-
But my kid won't stop talking, you know? Like it's a lot. From the moment he wakes up, it's like da 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 da. And like there's times where I'm like needing my
Mhm.
mental processes. Like there's been times where I've acknowledged that I have turned into my parents, and that's something that you all experience as well, where it's like, you know, damn, I really need to turn this music down so I can see where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like, but I've learned that's a neurodivergent thing, and now I'm starting to learn more, and it's like, oh, there's something wrong with my brain. Like I'm not a normie. There's something odd happening here, which is fine. But there's been times where it's like, you know, I'm trying to get coffee, you know, and I'm getting him settled and like whatever. And I'm trying to go through mentally what I need to do for the day, you know, and I need my space. I need to think. And it's just like nonstop, like, and I'm like, Killian, I can't even think right now. Can you just leave? And he's like, where am I going to go? I was like, to another room.
Yeah.
Like, I love you. I love you with all my heart. You're amazing. But I need you to stop talking to me right now. And of course he's like, okay, and he leaves. So then he starts talking to me from the other room.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is not better. Hey baby, come back here for a second. When mommy asked you, and I'll get in his face, and I'll be like, when mommy asked you to stop talking to me, you do realize that I had asked you to just kind of leave me alone for a minute, right? He's like, well, you told me to leave. And I was like, I did, literally. I said, go into another room. I didn't say go into the other room and just keep on talking to me.
Yeah.
I said, I need you to stop talking to me. Please go in the other room. Like, please leave. So those two things, neither one of them said, just keep on talking. And he's like, but it's really important. I was like, I know it's important to you. And let's put that in our back pocket for just a second, because mommy, I need to figure out what my life is. Can you just like go, please?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, sure. So then he goes. And then I get my thoughts back and I come in and he's like, so do you know who you are now? Can I talk? And I was like, sure.
But man, yeah, that literalism, that's a thing of Augie's too. Like, she's got no problem following the directions you've given, but she's going to be very literal about what you say. And my wife and I have that conversation often because I can be very literal without realizing it myself, which causes in all these, you know, these now almost 2 decades that the two of us have been married, causes arguments where I'm confused as to why we're having an argument. But it turns out that she has like asked me to do something, but she phrased it in such a way that I thought I was being asked if this was something I would like to do, you know. And she'll do the same thing with Augie a lot. And it'll be something like, hey Augie, do you want to go clean your room? And she's like, no. And now it's an argument because you're refusing to do the thing that you've been told to do. And I'm like, hey, Augie, this is one of those times when mommy says, would you like to? But what she means is, Augie,
do
go
it.
clean your room. And she's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And she'll go clean her room.
Mine was yesterday with Killian. So they're doing some kind of dress up week or whatever, and he got to wear lounge clothes. So you know, I'm trying to, like, I'm solo parenting, so I have to do the drop off, take him to school,
Yeah.
get in the car, get myself, you know, to work or whatever. So I'm trying to sit here and pack my bag and his bag and get his snack in there and get his water in there and make my coffee and, you know, get myself dressed and, you know, make sure that I have his clothes out for tomorrow and, you know, all the stuff, right? And I like come back into the room after I got myself dressed into the living room. And I was like, did you put your bowl in the dishwasher? And he was like, yes. And he stands up and I was like, what the hell is on your pants? He's like, what? And I was like, have you been rolling around on the floor? Is that cat hair? And he was like, no. And I was like, two things. It is cat hair. Were you just rolling around in the floor? And he's like, I wasn't rolling. And I'm like, well, how did you get cat hair on your pants? And he's like, well, I was crawling around and like kneeling on the floor. And I was like, I'm sorry. I said, I should have known better. Were you on the damn floor? And he's like, yes. I was like, with like, why? And he was like, well, I mean, I don't know. I was being a ninja. And I was like, and you didn't once roll? And he's like, I didn't somersault. I did this. And he showed me, and it was the rolling, like instead of like head to feet, it was rolling hip to hip. And I was like, you do realize that's rolling? It's like, I thought you meant like somersaulting.
We were told in the 80s to stop, drop, and roll. And that roll was exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, and like that's the other thing. Like, just it's really difficult right now. He is a sweet child. I love him so much, but I can tell the school has got their hands on him and he's turned into like a chatty Cathy. Like he gets mad because he comes home from school and he's like, I clipped down today. And I was like, why did you clip down? And he's like, well, for talking. And I was like, were you supposed to be talking? He's like, I'm quiet all day. I just wanted to say something. And I was like, but were you supposed to? And he's like, do you know how often I don't talk?
Yeah. Augie says the same thing.
He's like, it's just so, I have so many things to say, Mom. And I'm like, I know, baby, but like, there's a time and place for talking.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I'm on the toilet and you're trying to carry on a conversation with me through the bathroom door, that is a no happening thing.
Yeah.
Because I was in the room talking to you and you were ignoring me. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom now. And now all of a sudden it's like a trigger goes off and you're like, I must do all the talking. No. Or we have this thing like, so we're trying to get all the Halloween buckets from McDonald's. So we have, you know, and I'm like, all right, Killian, so don't talk to me while I'm ordering food. Okay. Because mommy has to plan it before I actually say it. So I don't look like a dumbass. All right.
I get that. Yep.
But I'm still a dumbass. Like it never fails. Because I don't know how to end it when they're like, you know, is there anything else? I'm like, no, I swear to God, I'm done. Like every time, you know, because I just need it to stop. So anywho, like he'll sit there and be talking to me, hey mom, and I'm like, I am trying to order. It'll be silent in the car. And then the moment that I'm starting to put in the order, he's like, hey mom, where do butterflies go? And I'm like, now is not the time. It's not appropriate. Like, let it go. So I just, yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I gotta talk her.
He doesn't talk to my spouse. Like he doesn't try and carry on the same kind of conversations with him. Like they play, but Killian wants to like philosophize with me, and I'm just like,
yeah.
And even Kevin, my husband, is like, why are you asking your mom that? And he's like, because she's smart. And I'm like, okay, so are you aware that perhaps the way you said that made it seem like your dad's not smart? He's like, no, dad's smart. Dad's smart, but he doesn't talk to me about these things. And I'm like, okay, so what's that have to do with smarts? And he's like, well, you have like a bunch of degrees on the wall. He just has one. And I'm like,
Stop. You don't even know how condescending you're
yeah,
being.
but he does. He goes for the jugular, like, and it hurts. Like when he brings, like, and Kevin just stands there and he's like, God. And I was like, baby, that was a little hurtful. Can you please apologize to your dad? And he's like, why? I didn't say anything. And I'm like, maybe you don't realize it, but like you put dad and I in this like position where you were just pretty much like earlier saying he's not as smart. And I was like, your dad's smart, you know? And then you're like, but not as smart as you. So you just kind of like circled back around to that initial thing. You need to apologize.
Meanwhile, my child will be like telling a complete stranger about what type of print she has on her underwear. And it's like, yeah, Augie, not everybody's comfortable talking about that. And she's like, but why? It's underwear. And not only that, it's
I
cool
really like the
underwear.
graphics on them. I have to tell everybody.
I know I'm not supposed to show them, but how are they going to know about it if I don't tell them?
Yeah. It's the weird disconnect about what they should talk about in public that kind of makes me sad. So like Killian will just randomly be like, you like, okay, I know you've heard the story, but where my kid introduced the new kid in the neighborhood to our house and was giving him a tour, and he's like, that's our throw up bucket. And a throw up.
You have peeked your microphone out, so nothing you just said came through.
Like it was one time, kid, one time you were throwing up and I threw the bucket from your Easter basket to you so you wouldn't throw up anymore on the floor, like one time. So anywho, he likes to say things like that, like, hey, stranger I don't know, I want to tell you about the booger that just came out of my nose in the car. I'm like,
oh yeah, Augie's dance teacher told us one time, we were talking to her about something else, and she was like, I just want you guys to know, love your daughter, but just so you are aware, there are no secrets when it comes to Augie. So I don't know what that child has told this woman about the two of us.
that's my
but it was enough that she felt like she needed to at least.
Yeah. It's my absolute nightmare. Mine was so my son's teacher is Chris Terry's wife.
Mhm.
So I try and maintain a level of professionalism with her when she's working in that capacity, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we're still on it. So we were playing Hansel and Gretel in the kitchen. And like I was like, if you come into my house, if you come into my space, I'm gonna throw you in the oven. Like I was waiting for something to finish cooking in the microwave. So I need to full disclosure, the oven was never used, it wasn't on or whatever. It was just kind of a fun little thing to play. My husband was in the other room.
Mhm.
So of course my kid's like, bet I'm gonna come in this room. And I was like, don't you do it. Don't you do it. I will pick you up, my pretty, and I will throw you in my oven. So of course he tiptoes in and I grab him and I open up the oven and I pretend that I'm going to put him in the oven. And then my husband comes and like saves the day. Okay. And it was just a fun little, like fun thing. The moment that I put my son down and he's like, I can't believe you're going to put me in the oven. I was immediately like, you're going to tell Mrs. Terry tomorrow. I can already tell. And my husband looked at me. I was like, can you watch the veggies? I need to go send Mrs. Terry just a real quick message. And he goes, for the oven. And I was like, for the oven. So I sent her a message. I was like, hey, I need you to know. And I did it through the class dojo. I was like, I need you to know that I did not put my kid in the oven. And then she was like, okay, well, I want to know what this story is. And I was like, so here's what we did. And like I pantomimed putting him in the oven. I just opened the oven door and pretended I was going to shove him in, but then his dad saved the day. So I understand that you're a required reporter. I get it. If he says something, I just kind of wanted you to be aware.
Yeah.
And apparently within just 2 years of my kid going to school here, the teachers know who I am. His kindergarten teacher felt the need to tell everybody in a faculty meeting one of the funny messages I sent her whenever he just randomly was going to yell out the word vagina and womb. Because we were talking about babies or whatever on the way. She was pregnant at the time. And I was like, so if he just randomly yells out the word womb, it's because we were talking about babies being in a uterus, in the womb.
Yeah.
And she was like, thank you for the tip. And then Killian, soon as he runs outside for recess, just yells out vagina. Like he'd been sitting on it all day and just needed to yell it. And recess was the right time. So of course a whole bunch of kids are like, why the hell is that kid yelling vagina? But she knew. So apparently, that makes me feel good about my legacy at the elementary school. That the teachers know that they will get some random message for me trying to explain something before it happens.
We've been fortunate that Augie is usually pretty good about like her language is such that they can put together through context clues what's going on. It's just that she doesn't care. She will tell things that are private or things that nobody needs to know. Like we were getting in the car one day and the back seat was just a huge mess. And I was like, Augustana, tonight we get home, you are going to help me get this back seat cleaned out. And then when she got out of the car and the person who was like there to greet her as she was getting out of the vehicle, she says, I know it's a mess in the back seat. My dad says it's too messy and I'm going to have to clean it when I get home.
Yeah. And then I just sit here and I'm like, that's not quite what I said, but thank you.
Yeah.
Because I know Augustana does it too, but it's like they shorten the actual conversation.
Yep.
And it's not even the key points. Like they missed a step.
Yeah.
Like we were at the pediatrician once and I was telling Killian about something relating to ears. And I was like, you don't need to put anything in your ears. All right. Like he's like, but you put Q-tips in there. I was like, I don't go all the way in there. A, and B, your pediatrician told me to just go around the side and I've been doing that. And he was like, yeah, but you don't go all the way in there. I was like, because I'm not supposed to. I was like, can we focus on the task? Nothing goes in your ear. Don't put anything in your ear, period. If it's smaller than your elbow, it doesn't go in your ear. All right. Mm-hmm. So then the pediatrician comes in and he's like, hey, Killian, he's going through the whole thing. He's like, well, I'm going to look in your ears. My kid said, my mom says nothing in the ear. And the pediatrician looks at me. I was like, please continue on. Just go. By this point, like the pediatrician knows my child, but at the same time, he just looks at me like the hell. And I'm like, just proceed. It's fine. There's a whole conversation happening here before you got here. I don't even know.
Oh, this has turned into one of the old school wrap-ups.
Yeah, I think we should cut a whole bunch out. Just cut like everything. Like
yeah, that's gonna be a lot of work.
Leave it at the rabies and tetanus. Just let that go. Everything else just cut. I really do have to leave. I really have to pee so bad.
All right. Enjoy. Bye, everyone.
Bye.